videos, fairly short, that are already posted on walking technique. But today I wanted to do something different and do a full soup to nuts, beginning to end discussion of walking technique, so you can see the whole perspective from the basics all the way to a little bit more advanced thought on how to walk correctly. Now, a lot of people do ask why post videos on walking technique. Well, the answer is a lot of people, whether they know it or not, don't walk correctly. And poor walking technique can be a cause of a variety of medical problems. There's so many people that suffer from conditions like plantar fasciitis, bunions, hammer toes, pain in the front of the knees, which is this area here, hip pain, lower back pain. Sometimes those sort of things can be caused by injury, but a lot of times those sorts of chronic pain are caused by chronic dysfunction in the way we move that causes our body to be out of line and out of alignment. When our body's not in alignment, what happens is the joints are exposed to excessive wear and tear. And over time, that can lead to injury that causes any one of those medical conditions that I mentioned earlier. When we learn how to move our core correctly and keep our body naturally aligned, then we can go through an entire 80, 90, 100 years of life and keep our joints functioning well and not breaking down, causing pain. So that is what we're going to discuss today, kind of start to finish, walking technique. And I'm going to show you some areas where people might have problems and show you how you can use your core to fix those problems and to understand those problems a little bit better. What I'm going to do is begin with posture. If we don't have good posture, then you're not going to have good walking function. So posture is a good place for us to begin the discussion. So I'm going to run through this pretty quickly with some posture tips that you can use for yourself. Number one, we're going to start from the top of the head and then we're going to go down to the feet. So first of all, good posture, we should have the head lightly kind of floating upwards. This is a Tai Chi technique that we teach. Imagine a string tied to the crown of your head and floating up, like a balloon is attached to it, and just elongating the neck, which then travels down to the rest of the spine, and in a gentle fashion, causing this elongation. Now, we say lightly floating up to distinguish between that and what some people would do is kind of try to pull the neck backwards, which creates a lot of tension back here. We don't want that. We just want the spine to naturally extend, floating upwards of the head without tension. The next part we want to do is go down to the shoulders, and we want to keep the shoulders down, so not hunching up, not hunching forward. We want to have the shoulders down and back, and kind of locked into their sockets here. So you don't want your shoulders to hunch forward like that. You don't want your shoulders to hunch up, and you also don't want your shoulders to pull back like this. This is a common mistake in posture, pulling the shoulders back, and what I mean by that is actually pulling back on the scapula on both sides, arching the upper back, and then what happens there is I end up with a tilt of my pelvis. That's also not good posture, even though that might look like a military posture there. That's not a functional posture. We want to have head floating up, shoulders down and back, chest relaxed. We want to have the core relaxed. Now, a lot of people would say the core should be tight and contracting the core muscles. I disagree with that, and that goes against Tai Chi theory. In Tai Chi, we realize that the core is being used for movement. When we keep the core tight, what we're doing is really just tightening one muscle group against the other. That's not producing any function. So what we want the core to be doing is helping to level our pelvis and keep our spine straight, but that is done without tension. So our waist should be nice and relaxed so it can help move our body, not tight as if we're trying to lift weights with it. So we go down now to our pelvis. I mentioned just a second ago that we want to keep our pelvis leveled. That means I want to keep my pelvis, which is this bowl-shaped bone here, I want to keep it level to the ground so it's not either pitching forward, we call it anterior pelvic tilt, or pitching back, which we would call a posterior pelvic tilt. Either one of those misaligns the spine and can contribute to a lot of different joint problems. So I want to have my lower abdominal muscles actually help to keep the pelvis aligned by pulling up on the tailbone, and that keeps everything nice and vertical. The next thing as we go down to the hips and to the knees and to the feet is we want to keep things lined up. I want to keep my spine in the center. I want to keep my hips lined up over my knees. And I want to keep my knees lined up over my ankles. So if I were to be standing with my knees in, like this, you can see that my knees aren't lined up over my ankle joints, and that's going to cause a lot of stress on the inside of my knees, and it's going to cause a lot of stress on my ankle joints. It's also going to cause a lot of stress on the arches of my feet, which over time will start to collapse. This is not easy to see visually, but if we don't keep our weight centered correctly, you might notice that your center of gravity is over the big toe and not over the whole flat of your foot. You should feel your whole flat of the foot down on the ground on both feet when you're standing. So if you're feeling all of your weight centered over your big toes or over your outside little toe or the fifth metatarsal, if you're feeling your weight out there or in here, that means your hips and your knees and your ankles are not going to be aligned, and that over time is what can lead to significant wear and tear, pain, hammer toes, bunions, all kinds of foot and knee problems that we want to avoid. So let's go back to the top, floating up of the head, shoulders back and down, chest relaxed, not pulling back with the shoulder blades. Core, abdominal muscles relaxed so you can move fluidly, but also engaged so they're helping to keep your pelvis corrected, meaning tilted in a neutral position, so it's not tilted either back or forward. Knees lined up right over the ankles, and ankles lined up over the feet, so you can feel the whole flat of the foot. One of the things you can do to test your posture is to line yourself up against a wall and see if you can stand with your heels against the wall, your bottom against the wall, and your shoulders against the wall, and stand and keep all that together. And you should be able to bring your head back a little bit and have your head touch the wall also. If you're standing with a significant tilt of the pelvis like this, you can see my bottom and my heels are touching the wall, but my shoulders are not in contact with the wall. So that means I need to level the pelvis out, and now everything is in contact with the wall, and that's going to be an effective posture. First thing I want to point out when we're walking is we want to keep our feet facing straight forwards. They might be a little bit apart like this, or when I'm standing, or a little bit closer together, but my feet should be facing straight forwards. If you stand normally like this, with your feet pointing out in kind of a duck-shaped position, that's probably a good sign you may be walking like that also. This is a very common walking problem. We call that the duck-footed walk, where the feet are angled outwards. This is a really common walking mistake, so please pay attention to the way your feet are placed when you're walking and make sure that is not what you're doing. If you are, then please make sure you're watching the rest of the video so you can get some tips on how to correct that. When you walk with your feet angled out like this, as you transfer your weight with each step, what happens is the weight concentrates over the insides of your knees, which can lead to arthritis and pain. It concentrates over your ankle, which can collapse your ankle. It can also collapse your arches over time as your weight rolls in over each step like that. Our feet are designed to move forward when we walk. They're not designed to move out at an angle, rolling in with each step. So that is one of the most common walking problems that we see. The The next thing I want to talk about is the swing of the arms when we walk. You'll notice when you walk, your arms swing in the opposite direction from your legs. When my left leg goes forward, my right arm swings forward. When my right leg goes forward, my left arm goes forward. That's a natural movement that is not generated by forcing the swing of the arms. It actually comes because of the rotation of the torso. So let's talk about the rotation of the torso and how that affects our walking. A lot of people, or probably most people, think of walking as being generated by something below the hips. But in fact, most of what we do when we're walking, or a lot of it at least, is coming from our abdominal cord, not just from what's below our hips. And so we need to be aware of what's happening with the abdomen when we walk in order to really understand what's going on. And this is what's going to play into the swing of the arms. So when I walk, what's happening is I have rotation of my upper torso, which is guided by my upper abdominal muscles, turning my thoracic spine. So the thoracic spine is in the spine behind the chest. It is rotated by my upper abdominal muscles. So I have upper abdominal muscles on the left, and they turn my body to the right. I have upper abdominal muscles on the right, and they turn my body to the left. My arms are attached to my upper abdomen, so when I rotate back and forth using my upper abdominal muscles, it creates a swing of the arm naturally, even though my arms are really just hanging there doing nothing. It's the rotation of the core that is moving them side to side. So why, when we walk, are the arms not swinging side to side? Why are they swinging forward and back? That is because of the rotation of the lower abdominal muscles. The lower abdominal muscles rotate my lumbar spine from one side to the other. And I can think of that almost as like my belly button pulling back and to the right. That's activation of my right lower abdominal muscles, the right lower abs. They pull my lumbar spine to the right, and they also tuck my pelvis on the right side at the same time. If I want to shift my weight over to the left leg, I turn my lower abdominal muscles to the left, so I think of my belly button turning to the left and tucking my pelvis on the left side. When we walk, we use what we call, or what I call, torsional rotation of the abdominal core, meaning my upper abdominal muscles are turning in the opposite direction from my lower abdominal muscles. That creates torsion, which is a twisting action, like twisting a towel. So one end turns in one direction, the other end turns in the opposite direction. My upper hand is turning clockwise, my lower hand is turning counterclockwise. Torsion, when we refer to the waist with the abdominal muscles, means my right upper abdominal muscles turn in the opposite direction from my right lower abdominal muscles. And my left upper abdominal muscles turn in the opposite direction from my left lower abdominal muscles. When they activate together, I have torsion on the left. My left upper torso is turning clockwise. My left lower torso is turning counterclockwise. When I activate torsion on the right, now I have my right upper torso turning counterclockwise and my right lower torso turning clockwise. When I shift my weight back and forth, I'm activating torsion on the left, then torsion on the right, then torsion on the left, then torsion on the right. Now what I haven't mentioned as part of this whole body movement is the action of the hip joints, which necessarily have to coordinate with the upper abdominal motion. So when I do torsion on the left, I'm flexing my right hip, and that allows me to move my whole weight over to the left. When I say flexing the right hip, I mean I am lifting my knee upwards on the right side. That's flexion of the right hip. You can't see the knee lift because as I start to lift the knee up and I use the torsional rotation on the left, that upward lift really just allows me to carry my weight to the left. Now when I go to the right, I'm going to use torsion on the right, and as I lift my left hip, or my left knee using flexion of the left hip, it allows me to lift my weight over to the right. And so I'm coordinating motion of my hip joints and the torsional rotation of the core to shift my weight to the right, to the left, to the right, and to the left. My arms swing forward and back because the upper torso is turning in the opposite direction of the lower torso. The next part of walking we need to understand are the different phases of a step, or the different phases of gait. So there are two different functional phases of each step that we take, and understanding when these phases start and when these phases end are very important for having proper walking technique. Most steps begin after we've placed our heel on the ground, and my right arm will be swinging forward because this is my left leg, my left heel that just touched the ground. In order to take my step, what I need to do is shift my weight over my left leg. So when I shift my weight over my left leg, I'm using flexion of the hip on the right to lift forward as I use torsional rotation on the left to pull my body forward. So I think of walking not in a pushing sense, but I think of walking more in a pulling and lifting. So I should have a feeling of pulling on the left side, pulling my weight forward using my torsional rotation of the abdomen. So I'm tucking my pelvis on the left that actually pulls my weight forward. And I'm lifting my right knee at the same time. That allows me to shift my weight to the left leg. This is the first phase of a step. I call this the changing of the weight. I place the foot with no weight on it, and then I shift the weight to that foot. That phase of the step ends when my lower leg, or my tibia, gets to be perpendicular to the ground, so it's nice and vertical, and the toes of my rear foot are still on the ground, but there's not any weight on them. All my weight is now carried on my front leg. That is the end of the change of weight. So that's the first phase of a step. I place the foot, and then I change weight. So I'm pulling forward on the left side of the abdomen. I'm lifting the right hip to change weight. The second part of a step, or the second phase, is the swing through. The swing through part of the step is when my right leg leaves the ground and travels forward until it touches down to complete the step. The swing through uses a different combination of core movements than the change of weight. When I change weight, this is the natural ending portion of the step. Even if I flex my hip further, it doesn't bring my body any further forward. I can't really even balance in this position. It's not a balancing position there. That's the natural end of that motion. In order to trigger the next part of the step, what I do is change the lifting of this knee to lifting of my standing leg knee. So meaning I'm intending to pull my knee upwards, that's flexion of this hip, not push my knee backwards. If I push my knee backwards, which sometimes is a mistake with walking, what happens is I would actually just push my weight backwards. So I wouldn't actually go forward. That's pushing, meaning I'm pushing my knee downwards by extending the hip. Instead, what I want to do to initiate the swing through phase of the step is I want to lift this leg forward, and that actually drives the second part of the step, or the swing through. So the first part of the step is the change of weight. It ends here. The second part of the step is the swing through, which ends here. So now I've placed my heel again. My left arm is traveling forward with my right leg, and at this point I generate the next step by using torsional rotation on the right to pull my weight forward. My left hip is now still flexing, and I finish the step by flexing the right hip to carry me forwards. Here's an exercise to do to get the feeling of the transition from the change of weight to the swing through. I'll start sideways, and I'm going to put my left leg forward and my right leg backwards. I want you to use your left arm and reach forward. This is a reflection of the rotation of the upper abdomen on the left. And what I want you to do is push your weight backwards. So I'm extending my left hip by pushing my knee down, and I'm tucking my pelvis over here on the left side. Now I want you to begin to lift the weight forward with your right knee by pulling the right knee up, flexing the right hip. So I'm going to push my weight backwards with the left hip, and I pull my weight forward by lifting the right hip. I'm going to push my weight backwards with the left hip, and pull forward with the right hip. Pushing down, pulling up. Pushing down, pulling up. This position is the end of the change of weight. Now I'm going to switch my pulling or lifting action from the right hip to the left hip. So go from here, feel of lifting forward, and you're going to end up completing the step. So we start from pushing down, lift with the right hip, lift with the left hip. I'm going to now do this facing forwards. I'm pushing down with the left hip. My upper torso is turning clockwise. My lower torso is turning counterclockwise. I'm going to use my left hip to lift, I'm going to use my right hip to lift the body forward. I've now got to a position where my knee is perpendicular to the ground, and at this point, I lift my left knee to complete the swing through. So there's no pushing action in there at any time. What you'll notice also is that at no point do I need to push off my rear toes in order to get myself to walk forwards. A lot of people, even people who teach walking, teach that we should push off our toes. If I actually push off my toes, what I'm going to do is get a lifting action of the body, which doesn't carry me forwards. I can't use momentum from the rear leg to push me forwards because I'm not on a skateboard where I can do this sort of action. As long as I'm pushing off the rear leg, I can't release the rear leg from the ground. So I don't need to push off my toes when I step forward. I'm really lifting my right leg from the ground, and then I use my left hip to carry me forward. It's really important when you're walking to use your standing leg hip to carry the weight forward, lift the weight forward when we take a forward step. If you try to step by using the rear hip and lift it forward, you won't really go anywhere unless you start changing the way you walk to this sort of gait, in which case you can use the rear hip to move your body forward, but it's not functional. So when we're taking a normal strolling step, the rear hip flexes to finish the change of weight, the standing hip flexes to lift the body forward in the step to complete it. I mentioned that we want to keep our feet facing straight forward when we walk. Another important component of keeping our feet healthy is when we place our heel on the ground, there should be no impact on my heel. I'm simply placing the foot controlled by my core, and then I roll into the step and then place the foot again. then I roll into the step, and then I place again. What I don't want to do is push off and crash into the heel under the force of gravity. I want to glide forward, place, glide forward, place, glide forward, and place. What you'll notice when you walk is if you can hear a very heavy heel strike, every time you hit the ground with your heel, that may be an issue that needs to get corrected. Another common walking problem that we see is, I'll go sideways for this one, is pushing off when we walk. So instead of gliding and placing the foot and gliding and placing the foot, some people, quite a few people, walk by pushing, and when you push, not only do you crash the weight into the heel, which can cause pain, it also affects the posture. You'll notice when I place my foot, if I push, now my posture is leaning forward. And so you might start off with a good posture when you're standing still, and then you take a step and you push, and now your posture when you're walking is not working well. Pitched over at the waist, and that is going to cause back pain, that's going to cause knee pain, that's going to cause ankle pain and foot pain. Another more common error that people have, using the same basic issue of that pushing off, you don't see a lot of people walking like this because most people recognize that being bent over is not functional. But what a lot of people do is they push off, and then chronically what they do is arch the upper back, pulling the shoulder blades together, so now it looks like they're vertical, but their pelvis is still tilted forward because of the pushing action. So they walk like this. You'll see a lot of backwards arm swing when people walk that way because the pulling back of the shoulder blades swings the arms backward when people take a step. It still has the same problems with it as crashing into the heel when they step. So that's a problem. It also arches the back severely, which can cause upper back pain. And then the compensation for that upper back arch is the tilt of the pelvis, which then exaggerates the curve in the lumbar spine in the lower back and causes stress on the lower back. That can lead to chronic back pain and chronic pain in a variety of different areas that we want to avoid. I'm going to do an exercise that you can practice with me to understand how to change weight from one leg to the other leg. What we're going to do is stand with our feet a bit wider than shoulder width apart. And I'm going to shift my weight to the right side, lifting my right arm slightly forward and turning my belly button towards the right leg. I'm going to shift back and forth. When your left arm is reaching forward, you should feel this coming from the upper waist rotation. At the same time, you should feel your belly button tucking the pelvis on that same side. Then we're going to shift, reaching forward with the right arm and tucking and turning with the belly button on the right side. I'm transitioning from torsion on the right, torsion on the left, torsion on the right, torsion on the left. Flexion of the left hip, flexion of the right hip, flexion of the left hip, flexion of the right hip. This is the equivalent of the position you would be in at the end of the change of weight portion of a step. Now, we're going to do the next phase of the exercise is continue with this rotation on the left side of the torso, and what I want you to do is lift the body up. That lifting action is coming from changing the flexion of the hip from the right hip to the left hip. This is the change of weight. And then I'm going to rise to a stop by flexing my left hip. Now, a lot of people would probably think that I rise up by pushing down with my knee, meaning extending the hip to push my weight up, but that's not actually what we do. We don't push down against the ground to lift. What we're doing is actually extending the knee to lift the body. So it's my knee extension that lifts me up, not pushing down with my hip. What I need to do is flex the hip and lift up. Now I'm going to take a side step, and let's go back to shifting weight to the right, to the left, to the right, and then now I'm going to lift the body up by engaging the right hip. Step side again, shift the weight. Left, right, left. Change the hip engagement from the right hip to the left hip to bring the body back up. Right, left, right. Engage the right hip to lift the body back up. That engagement of the standing leg hip is what you want to feel when you come to a stop or when you step forward. That motion is the same. A stopping action or stepping forward action both use the same energy in the standing hip and the same rotation of the core. The difference is when you start the motion. If I want to stop, I initiate the rising action from the end of the swing through. So I've just swung through with my left leg, placing on the heel. I have torsion on the right. If I want to stop, what I need to do is use the standing action on the left side by flexing my left hip and changing my torsional rotation to the left, and it brings me up to a nice even stopping position. So that's the same lifting action that I did here. I'm only doing it at the end of a swing through phase of my step. Step through with the left leg, and then I use that lifting action on the left to stop. It happens right after the placement of the heel. I lift up to stop the motion. If I want to take a full step forward, instead of lifting at the time of placement, what I do is I keep my right hip active, flexing and pulling me forward. Now I engage the lifting action, and instead of lifting me straight up, it lifts me forward to finish the step. What I do when I finish my swing through, if I want to take a step, is I change the torsional rotation on the core, and then I change my hip to the standing leg hip in order to take the step. I place my left heel with torsional rotation on the right. I begin the next step by changing that torsional rotation to the left. I didn't have to do anything with my hip action because at the end of the step, my hip on the right side was already flexing. It already was lifting forward, which is what drove the end of the swing through step. So in order to start a new step, all I need to do is change my torsional rotation of the core to the left side. Then to complete the step, I keep this left-sided torsional rotation and I flex this left hip, lifting my weight forward. Once I've lifted the weight forward, now I can change the torsional rotation to the right and then lift myself forward. Change the torsional rotation to the left, then lift my weight forward. In this portion of the video, we're going to discuss what we need to do with the body when we're going to go down hills or go down stairs. When we're doing any of those two actions, we need to move in a different way than when we're walking on flat ground. When we're walking on flat ground, as we discussed earlier, we had a change of weight, and then we had a swing through portion of the step. Now you notice my center of gravity moves forward when I do that swing through. It's now not balanced over my left leg or my right leg. I'm in a really unstable position, which is why I'm wobbling a little bit. That's not a natural stopping position. After we take a normal step forward, we initiate another step forward, or we initiate a stopping position. It's not natural to stop in midair with my leg forward on the left and my leg behind on the right. So when I go downstairs, what I don't want to do is launch myself into the air and then have to come down with a crash. Whether I'm walking downstairs or whether I'm walking off of a curb or down a hill, I don't want my center of gravity to leave the step. I don't want my center of gravity to leave this balancing point, forcing me to have gravity send me crashing down to the ground. I need to be able to create a balanced position before I do a controlled lowering of the body. So how do I do that? We talked earlier about changing weight, the first phase of a step. It ends naturally when my right toes are still on the ground, the tibia of my left foot or left leg is still perpendicular to the ground, and my weight is actually a little bit behind my foot. That's the end of the change of weight portion of a step. In order to step downhill or downstairs, now what I need to do is create a new position that is going to balance my weight over my left leg. That position is here. This is a stable, balanced position. So what's the difference between this and the swing through portion of a regular step? I'll show you right here. Instead of changing my hip action to my left leg, which is going to then travel my entire center of gravity forward, I'm going to continue lifting my right hip forward. But you notice, as long as I keep my torsional rotation on the left, my right leg does not actually swing forward. As high up as I can lift my hip, it doesn't travel forward because I have my torsional rotation on the left side of the body. You can practice this action here. I'm reaching forward with my left arm, I'm lifting my left hip, I'm lifting my right hip, and you can see where my leg naturally ends up going. It doesn't put me in a position to walk down a stair at this point because my leg is still behind my body, my foot is. After I change weight, what I'm going to do is continue to lift my right hip, but I'm also going to turn my right upper abdomen forward, and that is what is going to give the energy, the forward energy, to bring my right leg off the ground. This creates a new stable equilibrium position where I'm balanced on my left leg. Now, it's hard to see, but my right upper torso is turning counterclockwise, and my left lower torso is turning counterclockwise. So they're both turning towards my left leg, allowing me to balance in a stable position. So I'm lifting my right hip and using torsion on the left, and then I continue lifting the right hip, but I turn my upper torso to the left leg, and now I've created a stable position. If I'm standing on a stair, I can shift my weight to my left leg, and then I turn the upper torso towards the left leg. I've now created a stable position that I can use to take a step off in a controlled fashion. Or I can create that same position, create this stable position here, and I can step down rather than forward as if I'm going down stairs. So when I go down a hill, I am actually going to move my center of gravity forward as I lower the body. I'm going to change my weight. This is the change of weight portion of the step. And then I create the new position, balanced on my left leg, by turning both the upper and lower torso towards the left leg as I'm flexing my right hip. I now travel downwards by extending my right hip, meaning reaching it down, and at the same time turning my upper torso forward on the left. That generates forward energy to allow me to lower in place. So if I was walking down a hill, I can do that in succession, one step after another. Or if I'm stepping off a curb, that is what I would do. I would change weight. That puts me in this position here with my toes still on the ground. Then I would collect the right leg using torso action to shift the spine over the left leg into a balanced position. And then I would reach down with my right hip while turning forward on the left. Let's do that again. I change weight. I collect the right leg in a balanced position, and then I step down. That is the new position at the end of the swing through, and then I can start another normal step after that. So what's the difference between that and going downstairs? When I go downstairs, I use the same change of weight, the same collection to this new balancing position, and instead of keeping the torsional rotation of the body on the left side as I go down, I change the rotation to the right side, and that makes the body go straight down rather than forward. So what you can see here in slow motion is I change the weight with torsional rotation on the left. Then this part of the step is pretty invisible, but you'll have to practice this balancing position. I turn my upper torso to the left to release my right leg from the ground. And so now my right upper abdomen is turning this way. My left lower abdomen is turning to the left. What I'm going to do is extend my right hip and turn my belly button to the right, and that's going to cause me to drop and descend in a straight line rather than moving forward. At this point, this is a new equilibrium position where I'm extending my right hip, this knee is pushing downwards, my upper torso is turning counterclockwise, or if I'm reaching forward here with my right arm, my lower torso or my belly button is turning clockwise. That's the stable position at the end of a step. Well, it's not actually stable because this is not a natural position to stop. What I do in order to settle my weight on the step is I stop extending my right hip and I flex my left hip. That brings me down and settles my weight on the step. That's the change of weight. Now you'll notice if I lift my hip at this point, my leg still stays back. My foot does not swing forward because my right upper torso is turning forward. At this point, I need to regenerate that collection portion by turning my left upper torso forward, swinging my leg forward, and now I can take another step going down. Let's go back to the step. I change weight to the left foot, using torsion on the left, flexion of the right hip. I collect the right leg, balancing on the left by using what I call concordant rotation, going counterclockwise with the upper torso and lower torso at the same time. That creates a stable balancing position. And then now I'm going to extend the right hip and turn my lower torso back and to the right in order to lower to the next step. causes my body to descend straight instead of turning forwards. If I were to turn my pelvis to the left, it would swing my leg forward. I don't want to go forward when I'm going downstairs. I want it to go down. And so my belly button is turning backwards, my upper torso, and thus my arm swing is going forwards as I take a step. Then I lift my left hip to create my new equilibrium position. I change my upper torso to create a new balanced position on my right leg, and then I step down again. Let's do this slower. Change of weight, collection, swing through. Change of weight, collection, and if I was on another step, I would just do another swing through. That's going downstairs, going downhill, or off of a curb. Change of weight, collection, swing through. You notice at the end of the swing through, I'm not in a stable position. I have to immediately transition to the next change of weight. And that is how we move downstairs or we move downhill in an effective fashion without putting ourselves at risk of falling. If I take a normal step by changing weight and then using my left hip to swing through, I send myself off into no man's land, and I have to crash down using gravity. Obviously not a good thing. That's why stairs are such a dangerous thing, particularly for people as they get older, because they don't understand how to use the core properly, and the reflexes are not as attuned as when you're younger, and so it's very difficult to compensate. If you learn how to use the core when you're younger, then as you get older, you will be able to use it naturally without thinking about it. You can go up and down stairs with good balance, and you won't be at as high a risk of falling as if you grow older with unconscious movement, which is what most of us have, and then it's very hard to compensate if you're moving unconsciously. So what I'm trying to do with the walking code is help people develop more conscious movement so they can move more fluidly, move more effectively, and ultimately move without pain and without the danger of falling.